Hello everyone. In this video lecture, we are going to learn about lesions of spinal cord. We'll cover this topic under the following headings. The first will be transaction of spinal cord. So we'll deal with the different type of transaction of spinal cord. Then we'll read individually, then we'll understand individually the lesion of sensory system and the lesion of motor system. So let us start. So the first topic is transaction of spinal cord. There could be certain possibilities. There could be complete transaction, incomplete transaction or hemisection. As you can see here, in this case there is the complete transaction. That means if this transaction is at a particular spinal segment level, the connection between the above tracts or the above descending tracts is lost in case of motor system, and the signals from the sensory input which is going above is not reaching the brain. So in the case of complete transaction, the descending tracts, the signal from the brain through the descending tracts is completely lost, and whatever signal is arising from the lower segment from the ascending tract is then not going to reach to the brain. However, if you see the above segment, above the transaction, what is going to happen is the signal is still intact. Whatever signal is coming from the brain is still intact in case of the above the transaction level. All the signals are coming, and the signals which are arising from the sensory system from the periphery are also ascending to the brain. So above the transaction level everything is normal. The signals are coming from the descending tract and the ascending tract is also sending their signal back to the brain. Whereas below the transaction level, what is happening? The descending signals through the descending tracts are not reaching the spinal cord below the transaction segments, and the sensory signals which are supposed to reach to the brain are now not able to reach because there is a complete transaction at this level. Now looking at the hemisection model, as you can see here, there is the hemisection which is involving only one half of the spinal cord. So as you can see, the other half, all the signals, the descending and ascending tracts are intact, whereas the affected half has the same lesion as the complete transaction. What is going to happen is, on the affected half, the descending tracts will not be reaching this lower spinal segments, the segments which are lower to the hemisection, and the ascending tracts which are arising, the signal which are arising for the ascending tracts from the sections which are lower to the hemisection will not be going up to the brain, whereas the descending signal will be normal in the upper section from the hemisection, and the ascending signal will also be reaching to the brain from the upper segments of the spinal cord above the hemisection. On the other side, everything is normal. So that will lead to a different kind of manifestation in the hemisection as compared to the complete transaction model. Now coming to the compression or contusion model. As you can see here, in case of compression in the central canal, as in case of syringomyelia, what is going to happen is selective tracts are going to be affected which are near to the contusion or near to the compression. The selective tracts are going to be affected on both the sides or on either side where the compression is involved, and rest of the tracts which are far from compression will be normal. So this would be the case in case of incomplete transaction or contusion or compression model. Let us look at the case of complete transaction of spinal cord. The causes of complete transaction of spinal cord can be any type of injuries to the spinal cord, the dislocation of vertebra, spine, or it can be also due to the loss of blood supply to the spinal segment. That could lead to the complete transaction of spinal cord. There are certain stages of the manifestation of complete transaction. Those stages are stages of spinal shock, which is the first stage. Then comes the stage of reflex activity. After the stage of spinal shock, if the person recovers, he goes into the stage of reflex activity. And if the after the stage of spinal shock, if the person is not recovering, or if in any stage of reflex activity the patient deteriorates, he might land up in the stage of reflex failure. So this is the stages of complete transaction of spinal cord. So what is stage of spinal shock? What happens in that stage is there is complete cessation of all functions and activities below the level of section. So let us say if the transaction is below the level of C5 level, because above the C5 level what is going to happen is even the respiratory muscles are going to get involved and it could turn fatal for the patient. So the transaction, any transaction above the level of C5 level could be fatal. Below the C5 level, the transaction at any level of the spinal cord, below the transaction there will be complete cessation of function, like the sensory functions, the motor functions, the vasomotor functions and the visceral functions. All these functions will be lost. Whereas above the transaction, let us say if the transaction is at T5 level, below the T5 level, T6, T7, T8 and further down, all the functions will be lost in the stage of spinal shock. But the T4, T3, T2 levels will still be functioning as in terms of descending and ascending tracts. That means the motor supply will still be there and the sensation will still be going up. So that is the cessation of all the functions below the level of transaction. Then coming to the effect. The effect depends on the site of injury, as we have already discussed that if there is transaction above the C5 level, it can be fatal because it involves even the paralysis of respiratory muscles, which will lead to respiratory failure and death. But if the transaction is below the C5 level, the effect, whether it will be a hemiplegia, paraplegia, quadriplegia, not hemiplegia but paraplegia or quadriplegia, will be dependent on the site of injury. Then what is the cause of this spinal shock? Why all the functions suddenly stop? Why there is cessation of all the function? Because the cause of the spinal shock is there is a continuous tonic discharge, continuous control from the brain and which is descending to the spinal cord. Continuous control from the brain, encephalization of the functions. So there is a complete control, the tonic discharge are coming from the brain to the spinal cord, and spinal cord is just acting as a final common pathway or output pathway, whereas all the signals to perform its function is coming from the brain. Now when the complete transaction occurs, that signal which is coming from the brain, the complete control which is coming from the brain is disconnected. So because of that disconnected, the spinal segments which are below the transaction are now without any signal, and that is why at the stage of spinal shock their function completely stops. The duration and severity of the stage of spinal shock depends on the encephalization, the degree of encephalization. That means in human beings, the functions of the body is majorly located in the brain, and that is why the duration and severity of spinal shock is more as compared to the lower animals, in which spinal cord still performs the major functions. In those cases, the transaction of spinal cord will not, or it will have very less time of spinal shock. Stage of spinal shock will be of less duration in lower animals, whereas it is usually of 3 to 4 weeks in case of human beings. Now the characteristic effects of the spinal shock. It could be all of the effect will be seen in case of spinal shock. What will be the effects? The motor effects, that means the motor deficit which will be created below the level of transaction. The sensory deficit, what will be felt below the level of transaction. Vasomotor effect, that means the sympathetic system which is supplying the vessels, the smooth muscles of the vessels If the discharge is not continuous from the upper brain, the discharge is not coming from the autonomic centers from the brain, what will happen to the vasomotor outflow will be also a characteristic feature. Then the visceral effect, that means the control of the viscera, the reflex activity of the viscera will also be affected in the case of spinal shock. So what will be the motor effect? Let us see the motor effect in detail, but first we'll discuss about the other effects. The sensory effect will be the complete loss of sensation, of all type of sensation. Let us say the pain, the crude touch, the pressure, vibration, stereognosis, proprioception, temperature, everything will be lost. Fine touch, everything will be lost below the level of transaction. Above the level of the transaction, everything will be intact. The vasomotor effect will be the sympathetic outflow below the level will be cut off. So there will be vasodilation. And if the level of transaction is in the thoracic, way above in the thoracic, like T1, T2 segment, the effect of vasodilation will be huge, because the sympathetic outflow is thoracolumbar outflow T1 to L2, and if this transaction is at the T1 level, the impact of vasomotor deficit will be major, whereas if it is at the lower level, L1 level or L2 level, the impact of vasomotor effect will be minor, because it will involve only some part of the body, whereas if it is in the T1 level, it will impact almost all part of the body, and the vasodilation effect will be major, which will then cause further decrease in the blood pressure and difficult to maintain the blood pressure. The visceral effects includes the difficulty in bowel movement. Bowel movement will be difficult, and micturition reflex will be difficult. There will be a what will happen is the urine will be contained in the urinary bladder. There will be difficulty in the initiation of the micturition, and in case of defecation, there will be slow bowel movement, and constipation might occur due to the loss of visceral functions. Now let us see in detail the motor effects. So the motor effects, what will be happening is the paralysis of the muscle. Now paralysis is complete loss of voluntary control over the muscle. Paralysis of muscle is complete loss of voluntary control over the somatic muscles, and that depends on the level of transaction. If the transaction is lower level, below the cervical enlargement, if it is below the cervical enlargement, it will only affect the lower limb, causing paraplegia. As you can see the affected area, if the transaction is at lower level, which is only cutting off the lower segment, it will cause paraplegia, whereas if it is higher, it is in the higher level, it can involve both the upper limb and lower limb, causing the quadriplegia. So this is the loss of voluntary control over the muscles. Now loss of tone. What is loss of tone? Tone is basically the resistance, the passive resistance. It's not the active resistance, it is the passive resistance to a movement. So if you move your arm, when an examiner is moving the arm of the patient, he feels some degree of resistance in normal individual, and that resistance is called tone. But in the case of the stage of spinal shock, that tone will be completely lost. So atonia will be present, and it is a motor effect. And areflexia. So there are two types of reflexes what we see when we examine the motor nervous system, that is the deep tendon reflexes and the superficial reflexes. So both the deep tendon reflexes and the superficial reflexes will be lost, which are arising below the level of transaction. Above the level of transaction, the reflexes might be present, or the reflexes will be present, but below the level of transaction, the reflexes will be lost. So that is called areflexia. Now coming to the stage of reflex activity. So once the person undergoes the stage of spinal shock, which goes on for 3 to 4 weeks, after that he recovers. If the general condition of the patient is well, he recovers and comes to the stage of reflex activity. In that stage, what happens is smooth muscles regain their function. So the smooth muscles of the blood vessels and the smooth muscles of the viscera regains their function. So there will be a continence, or there will be the control of the urinary bladder, and there will be the control over the bowel movements, and the defecation reflex involuntary regulation will come back to normal. Not the voluntary control, but the involuntary regulations of those things will come back to normal. Then comes the sympathetic tone of the blood vessel. The sympathetic tone of the blood vessel will be regained in the stage of reflex activity. Then skeletal muscle tone then recovers slowly. Once the smooth muscle functions are restored, slowly there occurs the regain of the skeletal muscle tone. So tone in the flexor muscle returns first. This is because all the signals from the higher center is abolished. So the flexor tone returns first. The reflex activity begins to return after a few weeks of recovery of muscle tone, and in this case also reflex activity first appears in the flexor reflexes. Okay, so in case of complete transaction, flexor tone and flexor reflexes return first. Then there is a phenomenon of mass reflex also. That means if the patient has a painful stimulus or some kind of stroking stimulus, what is going to happen is there is going to be a mass response of the micturition reflex or defecation reflex or the sweating of the skin, so which can be elicited by painful stimulus. So that gives a certain degree of control to the patients to regulate their micturition and defecation reflexes. Now coming to the stage of reflex failure, as we have discussed that in the case of patients whose general condition is not stable or they have comorbidities, they can go into the stage of reflex failure, where reflex become difficult to elicit, the threshold for the stimuli to produce reflexes increases, mass reflex is abolished, and the muscle becomes extremely flaccid and undergo wasting. So as you can see here, if one limb is, this is just the example of muscle wasting. If you can see here, there is normal side where the muscles are normal, and compare it with the affected side, the muscles are wasted. There is muscle wasting. The bulk of the muscle has reduced. That is called the muscle wasting. So if there is stage of reflex failure, this muscle wasting may take place. Now coming to the incomplete transaction of spinal cord, the stages are almost same. There is stage of spinal shock, there is stage of reflex activity, and stage of reflex failure. As you can see here, the stage of spinal shock, it is similar to the stage of spinal shock of complete transaction. The stage of spinal shock, the manifestation will be there, and it is similar to the stage of spinal shock of complete transaction. Coming to the stage of reflex activity, there are some differences from the stage of reflex activity of complete transaction. So as compared to complete transaction, in complete transaction, the tone will appear in extensor muscle first, because there are sparing of certain descending tracts which are coming from the vestibular nuclei, from the reticular nuclei, which supplies majorly to the extensor muscles. So because of the sparing of those descending tracts from the injury, tone appears first in the extensor muscles, and also the extensor reflex returns first. And in this case, mass reflex is not elicited. Why mass reflex cannot be elicited is because the spinal cord here is not completely separated from the higher center. So if still the higher center is connected to the spinal cord, there is what will happen is mass reflex cannot be elicited if the spinal cord is still connected to the higher centers of the brain. Now coming to the stage of reflex failure, it is same as the stage of reflex failure in case of complete transaction. Now coming to the hemisection of the spinal cord, which is also called as Brown-Sequard syndrome. This can be caused experimentally or by any particular injuries. As you can see here, hemisection of the spinal cord can be involving one half of the spinal cord, either the right half or the left half, and this phenomena is called Brown-Sequard syndrome. The hemisection can also involve the anterior part of the spinal cord, which is called as anterior cord syndrome, or in case of the midsection of the spinal cord, which is called as the central cord syndrome. Each will have different manifestation based on what tracts are involved, what tracts are intact, and what tracts are cut off. So we will study only the Brown-Sequard syndrome, and we'll try to understand what could be the mechanism for the manifestation of hemisection, and then we'll apply it in anterior cord syndrome and central cord syndrome by ourselves. Okay, so in this class we are going to deal only with the Brown-Sequard syndrome, which is hemisection of one half of the spinal cord. So this half is affected, as you can see here. Another half, all the tracts are intact. So there are immediate effects and the late effect of hemisection of the spinal cord. Immediate effect includes the spinal shock, which is same as a spinal shock in case of complete and incomplete transection of the spinal cord. Then comes the late effect, and the late effect can be studied in these headings: changes at the level of the section, changes below the level of the section, and changes above the level of the section. So let us have a look at the sensory changes first. We'll look at the sensory changes at the level of the hemisection, below the level of the hemisection, and above the level of the hemisection, and then we will go for the motor changes. So as you can see, let us revise the ascending tracts. The tract dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway is taking the sensation and ascending in the spinal cord, and as it ascends in the spinal cord, it is taking the sensation from the same side. That means if it is ascending on the left side of the spinal cord, on the left side of the spinal cord it is ascending, it will carry the sensation of the left side. So it will take the touch and proprioceptive sensation of the left side and ascend on the left side of the spinal cord, and then cross over to the opposite side in the brain stem. Whereas when we compare the anterolateral system, that is lateral spinothalamic tract and anterior spinothalamic tract, what is happening here is it enters to the spinal cord from the left side and crosses over at the same segment or few segments above or below, and then ascends in the spinal cord on the opposite side of the spinal cord, as compared to the dorsal column pathway, which is ascending on the same side of the spinal cord. The spinothalamic pathway, which carries the pain, temperature, and crude touch sensation, is ascending on the opposite side of the spinal cord. The sensation it is carrying of the left side, and it is ascending in the right side of the spinal cord. So this is important to remember to understand the difference in manifestation of sensory system. So when you look at the level of transaction, what will happen? There is a complete sensory loss. That means all the sensation will be lost, whether it is fine touch, crude touch, pain and temperature, all the sensation will be lost of that same side of hemisection. Okay, so let us say this is the left side of hemisection, and at the left side of hemisection all the sensation of that at the same spinal segment level will be lost. What happens below that hemisection? So if the hemisection here is, let us consider at the T5 level. Okay, so what is going to happen is the signals which are coming from bottom will not be then reaching above to the brain. So which signal will be affected on which side? the same side, on the same side of the hemisection, the fine touch, vibration, 2-point discrimination will be lost. Why this is happening? This is happening because as we have discussed earlier, the dorsal column pathway ascends on the same side. So if there is lesion on the left side, what is going to happen? The sensation of the left side of the individual is going to get lost. These sensations which are carried by the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway. So if the transaction is at this level, below that level, the signal which is carried, the sensation which is carried by the dorsal column will be lost of the same side, because dorsal column left side is carrying the left side signal, it is lost. The sensation of the left side of the body which is present below the section is lost. Whereas when we see about the anterolateral pathway, what is happening? It is carrying the sensation of left side to the right side, and it is ascending on the right side. So in this case, if the hemisection is on the left side, what is going to happen? Which anterolateral tract will be cut? The tract which is coming from the right side, cross to the left side, and then ascend on the left side will be damaged. So that is why the sensation of pain and temperature on the right side will be affected. Why it is happening once again? Because the anterolateral tract which are arising from these lower segments crosses over to the opposite side from the right. It takes the sensation from the right and crosses to the left side and ascends on the left side of the spinal cord. That is why if there is a hemisection of the left side of the spinal cord, what is happening? The pain and temperature sensation of right side is getting affected. The left side pain and temperature sensation will be intact. Whereas in case of dorsal column pathway which is ascending on the same side, so the left side, if it is affected, the sensation of left side will be impaired, whereas the sensation which is coming from the right side will ascend on the right side, and the sensation of the right limb, lower limb, will be intact. The sensation of fine touch will be intact on the right side. So this is how it is affected. In the brief, the sensation which is carried by dorsal column will be affected on the same side, and the sensation which is carried by the anterolateral pathway will be affected on the other side or the opposite side below the level of hemisection. Okay, so this is the sensory manifestation of hemisection at any level. Below the level it is going to happen. At the same level, all the sensation is going to be lost of the same side, and above all the sensation will be normal. So this is the sensory manifestation. Okay, so to understand the manifestation of motor system in hemisection or in any other motor neuron disorder, we have to understand what is lower motor neuron and what is upper motor neuron. So what is lower motor neuron is the neuron which is arising from the anterior horn, the cell body which is located in the anterior horn, and the axon is coming out from the ventral root and then carrying out in the spinal nerve. This neuron which is arising from the anterior horn supplying to the muscle is called as the lower motor neuron. Whereas the neurons which are descending from the brain and the brain stem, from the cortex or from the nucleus in the brain stem, and then coming and synapsing with the lower motor neuron here in the spinal cord will be called as the upper motor neuron. So the descending tracts which are carrying the neurons which comes and then synapse to the lower motor neuron is called as the upper motor neuron. So this is the descending system is the upper motor neuron, and the final common pathway which is arising from the anterior horn is the lower motor neuron. Now if there is a lesion or if there is a transection from the cortex till its synapse to the final common pathway or alpha motor neuron in the spinal cord, if there is a damage in this descending pathway anywhere from the cortex to the synapse, it will be called as the upper motor neuron lesion of that particular muscle. And if the damage is to the spinal nerve or the spinal nerve root, this damage will be called as lower motor neuron lesion for that particular muscle. So, if the descending tract is affected, it will be called as upper motor neuron lesion, and if the final common pathway is affected, it will be called as the lower motor neuron lesion. So, this can be differentiated when we examine the motor system on the basis of the bulk of the muscle, the tone of the muscle, the power or voluntary control over the muscle, reflexes, that is the deep reflexes and superficial reflexes, the coordination which checks the cerebellum, the gait again which checks the cerebellum, outflow and involuntary movements if any it is present, like in case of cerebellum and basal ganglia disorders, there would be involuntary movements, fasciculation, fibrillation, all might be present in case of upper motor neuron lesions or lower motor neuron lesions. So, we examine the motor system on these basis, and this is very important headings to differentiate between the upper motor neuron and the lower motor neuron lesions. So, let us understand what is going to happen in the lower motor neuron versus upper motor neuron lesion. So, what is going to happen is the lower motor neuron lesion on this side and the upper motor neuron manifestations are on this side. In case of lower motor neuron lesions, usually there is single or individual muscle is affected. Why? Because lower motor neuron is involving only a spinal nerve or spinal nerve root, and that is why only a single muscle might be affected. But in case of upper motor neuron lesion, a group of muscle is affected. Why? Because if the descending tract is injured, it is highly likely that a group of tract will be injured, and the group of tract, like let us say lateral corticospinal tract, will be affected. And if the lateral corticospinal tract is affected at any level, it will synapse at various level of the spinal cord, thus supplying the various muscles, and that is why a group of muscles will be affected in case of upper motor neuron lesions, just because the upper motor neuron lesions involve a thick tract of descending neurons. Now coming to the second point, as in the case of tone. So, when we examine the tone, we find that in case of lower motor neuron lesion, there is flaccid paralysis. That means the tone is lost, atonia. Whereas in case of upper motor neuron lesion, there is spastic paralysis. Because in case of lower motor neuron lesions, both alpha and gamma motor neurons are lost. Whereas in case of upper motor neuron lesion, gamma motor neuron is highly active, and that is why spasm or a contraction, a higher rate of contraction is present, and that is why it is a type of spastic paralysis in which the tone will be higher. Now coming to the power, in case of lower motor neuron, the voluntary control and power is completely lost. And in case of upper motor neuron, also the voluntary control is lost to a certain degree. It can be complete loss or it can be a partial loss, that is called as paresis. The complete loss is called as paralysis, and the partial loss is called as paresis. And because of this complete loss of tone and loss of voluntary control, there will be muscle degeneration. As you have seen in the previous slide, the wasting of the muscle, there will be muscle degeneration, atrophy of the muscle. Whereas since the tone is maintained or the tone is more in the muscle in case of upper motor neuron lesion, the stimulation to the muscle is continuously there, and that is why there is no degeneration and wasting of the muscles. In case of lower motor neuron, since the stimulation is not at all there, the muscle goes for atrophy. Then coming to the reflex, there is areflexia. Both the superficial and deep reflexes are lost in case of lower motor neuron lesions. In case of upper motor neuron lesions, the deep reflexes are exaggerated. That means there is hyperreflexia. exaggerated deep reflexes, whereas the superficial reflexes are still lost. The Babinski sign, which is a plantar reflex, an abnormal plantar reflex is called Babinski sign, and this will be negative or it will be absent in case of lower motor neuron lesion, whereas Babinski sign will be present in case of upper motor neuron lesion. In case of lower motor neuron lesion, clonus is absent. Clonus is a sustained contraction, kind of rhythmic contraction of the muscle, and in case of lower motor neuron lesion, if the muscle is affected, clonus cannot be elicited, whereas in upper motor neuron lesion, clonus is present in the affected muscle. So this is the differentiation between lower motor neuron lesion and the upper motor neuron lesion. Now coming back to the hemisection, what is going to happen? At the same level of the hemisection, what is the muscle will undergo a lower motor neuron lesion, and below the level of hemisection, the same side will have the manifestation of upper motor neuron lesion. Okay, so at the level, the same side will have lower motor neuron lesion. Below the level of hemisection, the same side will have the manifestation of upper motor neuron lesion, because in this case the transaction is disconnecting the upper motor neurons. The transaction, the hemisection is damaging the upper motor neurons. That is why it will have the manifestation of upper motor neuron lesions below the hemisection. Opposite side will be normal. In case of motor system, opposite side will not be affected at all. So this is the motor manifestation of Brown-Sequard syndrome. That finishes the Brown-Sequard syndrome and also the lesions of motor system, which is the lesion of lower motor neuron and lesion of upper motor neuron. Now coming to the last topic, we will deal the lesion of sensory system in the spinal cord, and this will be dealt, only one topic will be dealing is syringomelia, and the rest of the topic you have to go through by yourself and find out why the manifestations are occurring based on the analysis of syringomelia. Okay, so what is happening in the syringomelia? It is a compression kind of disorder. Because of the overgrowth of the glial cell near the canal is dilated and it is compressing the cells or the tracts around it. Because of that, there is a selective degeneration or selective loss of sensation. What is getting lost? As you can see here, the compression is in this region, and the pain and temperature sensation from this side, synapses here, and then crosses to the opposite side to the spinothalamic tract and ascends. So this second order neurons are arising from here in the spinal cord and going to the opposite side near to the compression, and because of this course, these tracts or these neurons which are crossing to the opposite side will get affected, will get compressed, will get degenerated, and because of that the pain and temperature sensation selectively will be lost, whereas other sensations which are carried far in the dorsal column will not be affected on any side. In this case, both the sides are coming and crossing at the same point, and if it is affected at the same point, both the side pain and temperature will be lost. As we will see in the next diagram, it is a cape-like distribution of pain and temperature. So this is where the compression is occurring, and because of that the pain and temperature on both the side is being lost, whereas the touch sensation, other sensation, proprioception will be completely normal in this area. Only the pain and temperature sensation of this area will be lost in case of syringomyelia. Okay, so this is how the different involvement of different tracts give different manifestation, and that is how you have to understand the different manifestation of different lesions. So I hope this will help you to understand the spinal cord lesions, spinal cord much better, and the rest of the things what we have mentioned you can go through them, understand, and if you face any difficulty in understanding those lesions, just comment and we will discuss it in the next videos. Thank you for watching.